Meantime, the bench gets underway here with Ladies' Night. That's right. 3 ladies who recently got jobs as principal secretaries, young, smart, ambitious, and they're doing a pretty good job so far. Let's see if they're enjoying themselves. That's the most important thing. So right next to me, Umi Bashir, she's a PS for Culture and Heritage. Right next to her is Roseline Njogu, she's a PS for Diaspora Affairs, a new docket that's just been created. And on the far end, Sylvia Musea, she's PS for Wildlife. Ladies, good to see you all. Welcome to JKLIVE.
Thank you
and
for
the
having
bench.
us. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Okay, so let's get right to it. Let me ask you, Sylvia, you first on the far end. What makes you think you were the right pick or you were qualified enough when 9,000 people applied for these jobs? How come you were short? How come you got the job?
I think I got the job because I was qualified. Of course, there was an advert that ran that gave the qualifications required, so I think I was qualified. I also think I got the job because there was something they were looking for, an infusion of both old hands and new ideas. So I think I came in the new ideas group. And I think I got the job because I really worked hard for it over the many years.
Yeah.
By the time I was applying for it, I really wanted it.
Did you know you'd get it?
No, of course.
You didn't know?
No. That's why I applied for and went through the process.
How about you?
It's a tough job to apply for,
Yeah.
honestly, and it takes a lot to believe that of the almost 10,000 people who applied for the position that they would pick you,
Yeah.
And 50 others. And so it's a blend of qualifications, it's a blend of passion, a blend of the work that I have done over the years before, and what I have tried to do in bringing law and society together in my previous work, and I guess guts and small girl with a big God.
Nice, nice. Umi, how about you?
First of all, thank you, Jeff, for having me here tonight. And I'd like to thank His Excellency, the President, for this appointment. It's an honor. I am a lawyer, been practicing for the past 11 years. I have been working in the United Nations. I've worked with the county governments. I have a vast experience, especially even in the humanitarian world. I have a community-based organization in Wajir that empowers ladies, young girls, a mentorship program too. And I looked at the advert in the paper and I figured, why not? I have nothing to lose. So I took a leap of faith and here we are today. So thank you.
Just like that?
Yeah.
Did you know you would get it, Umi?
Oh no, I had no clue.
And when you saw 9,000 people apply, did you say, oh, this is not for me, I'm not gonna get this?
Not really, I said, why not? I mean, why not give it a shot? So. Yeah, I think God was on my side.
Roseline, the short list kept changing. We kept hearing there's 400. I don't know, you guys must have seen that there's 400. I don't know, there's 600. And it came down to 500 and change. Did that bother you? Did that worry you?
Truthfully, I wasn't concerned because I was on the shortlist, whichever shortlist you go by.
You knew you were on that.
So, I saw it. They published it on the PSC website.
Yes.
And even before I saw it on the PSC website, it circulated on WhatsApp very quickly. And that's how sort of I knew that I'd been shortlisted. But truthfully, also, when you apply, you don't know how many other people will apply. Right. And previously, the position hasn't attracted as much interest. So, in previous years, there haven't been 10,000 people applying for the position. This, I think, round was particularly interesting in that way. So you apply, you don't know how many other people have put in the application, you do your best. It's probably the application of your life. So you put out the very best that you can, and then you wait. So when we got the shortlist, only in the shortlist do they mention that so many people applied and only these 500 and something have been shortlisted.
Yeah.
And then I think the work of preparing for the PSC interview then really begins.
Yeah. Good segue into my next question for Sylvia. How was it appearing before the PSC and later on the parliamentary committee? What was that like?
Of course, with 9,500 applications, you realize that the bar has been set up so high. So what we did is I myself prepared thoroughly for that interview. I thought that I'm sitting in as principal secretary, and for that reason, we really put in a lot of effort and time, because I was saying I might get it, I will get it, and so this information is not going to go to waste. I'll still use it when I take over. The panel was quite something, quite friendly from where I sit, so I did not feel like I was under a lot of pressure or relevant questions to the Kenya Kwanza manifesto. It was very easy for us who did the politics of Kenya Kwanza, because we kept on interacting with the plan. So it was easy to figure out what the new government regime's administrative priorities were. And that was majorly where the interview was headed towards. Yeah. Yes.
Sylvia, where were you when you heard the news that you were appointed? Where were you?
I was driving from Laikipia coming to Nairobi. I was en route.
And someone called you, or
someone sent me a
WhatsApp?
WhatsApp message. So I was actually coming to pick a few of my things, because I had just been nominated as a CEC in Laikipia.
Oh.
I was just ready to settle in now to work for the people of Laikipia. And then I was excited. I was happy.
So you had a choice. You could either have gone to become a CEC, or
I did not have a choice. I wanted this one.
Roseline, how about you? Where were you when you heard the news?
I was in my house. I had just gotten back from a doctor's appointment, and I get a WhatsApp message. The first one said, "Congratulations." And I did not know what I was being congratulated for. And then my phone started to ring, and it rang off the hook for the next, I think that started at about lunch until about 11 p.m.
Good Lord.
I think in that space, I had fielded about 60 calls.
Ish.
Just congratulations, and, and it was high school friends, it was primary school friends, it was, clients, colleagues I hadn't spoken in a long time, people from, Nairobi and abroad and so on. So it was quite something.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Umi, how about you?
Well, where was I?
Yes.
Oh, I was with my father, and we were at home, and he's actually the first one who told me, "Wow, Baba, congratulations." And I was taken aback, because I wasn't expecting the announcement to come so fast. We had been already, we had done the vetting and everything, but now, no, we had not done the vetting. The interviews, yeah. So when the news broke, now the phone could not stop ringing. And the congratulations, of course, came in. I was overwhelmed, so the first thing I did was got down on my knees and prayed and thanked God for that, because coming that far itself, it's a big achievement. Coming from a pastoralist community, I didn't really, I prayed for it, but I didn't really think that I would be among the chosen few. And for me, it is an honor, because I'm actually the only Muslim lady PS, and also in the cabinet, I'm the only Muslim lady. So it's an honor to represent the Muslim community at large. And thereafter, began now the preparation for the vetting and all that. The vetting itself was more or less based on the KK manifesto, which of course I knew. I had been working with the National Election Board of the party UDA. So I knew more about the manifesto and what the government wanted to do. So aside from that, it was a good grilling. It was a grilling before MPs, so you can only imagine. Yeah, so it was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Congratulations, guys. Well done. Well done. Okay, Roseline, the swearing in.
Yes.
Happened at the crack of dawn.
Not
This
quite.
administration has. It was early. Yeah.
Well, mapema ndio best.
Dear best. What was that like? And were you guys accompanied? Were you allowed to bring family members?
Yeah. So I was at State House with my family. Unfortunately, my husband had traveled, so he couldn't come. He was in the diaspora at the time. But my kids were there, my parents were there, my siblings, and it was, in-laws. It was lovely.
Yeah.
And my kids have, little children, and my youngest one is was 3 at the time. She hadn't even turned 4, and she kept saying, "We're going to see the president today. I'm wearing my dress for the president today." So I mean, there was an excitement in the air, and it was clear even to them at a young age that something big was happening. For me, it was a solemn oath taking, where you're committing to serve Kenyans.
Yeah.
I mean, it's maybe not exactly similar to taking an advocate's oath, but quite similar in the sense that you have to lift your Bible and commit to certain things. So festive, serious. It was a really interesting blend.
Yeah. Sylvia, you? Family, everything?
Family, same. You don't even sleep enough because...
Excitement.
Excitement.
Yeah.
There were legal cases in there. There were a bit of stoppage. Some people would scare you and tell you, you know what, they've said they're changing the list still. So now it comes alive to you that you're actually a PS on the day of the swearing in. The youngest ever. I think I am the PS under 35 years. So you have...
The only one? Or one of the few?
I am the only one under 35 years.
Wow.
But my colleagues are in their 30s and several others who are not here.
Yes.
So a very young cabinet,
Yes.
and we really thank the president for believing in us. And at that point, it comes clear to you the onus that is placed on you, the burden of proof that young people can lead this country. And so I was excited. My mother was there with me. I think I really wanted my grandmother to be there with me because she really brought me up when I was little. So my small kid could not understand what was happening.
How old?
4 years. But at least my daughter knew that her mother is becoming something.
Right.
So a combination of both, and a very good day.
Nice.
An early morning, and that has been what this administration is all about.
Early morning.
Morning.
But before you tell us about your experience, I hear if you're late for a meeting, a 7 o'clock meeting, for instance, you can't get in.
You don't want to be late.
We also hear because we've not been late.
Yes.
But I hear some people have been late and were told, go back to where you were.
I think the rumors of people being late and being told to go back where they were.
Rumors.
The rumors? No one's ever been late.
No. I haven't,
7 a.m.?
I haven't had a 7 a.m. yet. But if the head of state is going to make it to a meeting
Before 7.
Then I really have no excuse.
You have no excuse.
Yeah.
Like I ought to be there well in advance.
Okay.
But yes, there's a lot of, you get a sense there's an urgency to delivering services, to delivering value, but also you have a head of state who is really plugged in and who knows the work and who is pushing, he's a hard worker, as you probably already know. He's a hard worker, and so he expects the team to move at that pace, if not faster.
Absolutely.
So, yes.
Umi, you mentioned your dad a few moments ago. You were with him when you heard the news. Did you take him to this?
Oh, yes, I did. He was out. He was so excited.
Yeah.
You know, I brought my dad, my husband, my brother, and an uncle of mine who's very passionate about Kenya Kwanza and the whole UDA thing. So it was a beautiful experience. Taking an oath is not an easy task. It is a responsibility that you're taking and you're swearing before God that you're going to perform and you're going to, be a straightforward civil servant. So for me, it was nerve-wracking, but at the time I knew what I wanted. I had applied. So I was very excited. My father, on the other hand, yeah, he was more excited than me. As for kids, I have 2 amazing boys, but the first one is 4 years, the other one is almost 2. So
all of you have 4-year-olds.
Yes.
Yeah, 4-year-olds. Yeah, so there was no way I was going to take them.
Yeah.
And we were told that to be very early at State House, so there's no way I was going to wake them up. But it was a beautiful experience, and so here we are today.
Look at that. Here you are today. So let me ask you this, Umi. Let's start with you. Is this the biggest desk you've ever sat behind? And how does one start? What was day one like?
Oh, yes. This is the biggest desk I've ever sat behind.
Yeah.
I ran my law firm before, and so I thought that is the biggest desk, But this is indeed different. Day one was, of course, handing over, the previous PS handing over. meeting the team, the technical team. I also met the sagas that fall under my State Department. So actually, day one was more of introductions and handing over from the previous PSs. We happened to be in the same ministry with Sylvia here. She's in Wildlife, I'm in Culture. So there was the whole debrief. And, you know, cake cutting and goodbyes from the previous PSs. And that's when it hit me that this is not a joke. This is a serious responsibility. Then came His Excellency, the President, where now, you know, we were in Nanyuki and everything was, you know, so, straightforward, and everything was like, keep time, you have to perform, you have to deliver, you know. So it was great for me because I'm a performer and I know I will deliver. And we have short-term targets, we have long-term targets, which I'm sure my fellow PSs can attest. We are doing our best to ensure that we tick the boxes that we promised to tick. Yeah. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Roseline, biggest
Huge
desk?
Yes. I also,
is it literally a big desk? I mean,
literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
So it is actually a really big desk. Yes, I also ran a firm, law firm. I think you've picked 3 lawyers, actually.
Wow.
So, yes. So I ran a firm. I've also taught at the university. I helped set up, a law school. So I've had my experience in sort of doing big jobs, but this one is different because not only do I have to set up a State Department from scratch and figure out where does this go and what does diaspora look like 30, 60, 100 years from now and do that work, but also on the very first day you're confronted with live issues. You have 3 to 4 million Kenyans who live abroad, whose needs, whose rights, whose welfare have not sort of been cared for in a structured fashion. So for me, day one wasn't the day after swearing in. For me, day one was when the nominations came out and my phone started ringing from the diaspora. We hear you're the nominated PS. Can we have a Zoom meeting with you? And I started having Zoom meetings before I was vetted, before I was sworn in, and it is all hours of the night because the diaspora is, awake 24 hours.
Yes.
So, and then very quickly I found myself thrown into, having to rescue people who are stranded in different parts of the world, but also just structuring how to deliver services. Day one was interesting because for me there wasn't a substantive handover. There has been a Directorate of Diaspora and Consular Affairs within the broader foreign affairs, but there wasn't really a handover of a State Department, sort of like my colleagues have had. It was more of, we'll show you where stuff is, and then you figure out what this thing that you're building is.
Yeah.
But on my first day, we had a luncheon with the European Diplomatic Corps. So all of the ambassadors here from various countries in Europe was basically my first day on the job, getting to meet everybody and trying to figure out what is our agenda and how do we posture the diaspora agenda with the different counterparts within Europe and so on. So fascinating, big desk, lots of exciting work, probably the most fun I have had in a really, really long time.
Is that right?
Oh, yes. It's been the adventure of my life.
And still having fun.
Oh, yes.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we'll get to Saudi Arabia in a moment. See how much fun that is. So, Sylvia, how about you?
The one,
Yes.
baptism by fire.
Yeah. Big desk?
Actually, very big desk. Week one also, the entire 1 month was just baptism by fire. We thought you'd have an induction where you'd be told this is what you're supposed to do and this is what you're not supposed to do. You learn that you have to learn on the job. For me, I think my day one was walking in a very small girl, literally in terms of physique and age, and meeting a service full of technocrats and people who've been serving for a very long time, and trying to prove yourself that you know your stuff. And I think I really thank God and I thank the President that I went to Wildlife, because it is one thing that I really love and I enjoy, and it is what I was born into. So, and I have been reading too much because it's the only way you actually prove that you are worth that position. So that by the time they're even telling me their budgets are, I can tell them the last 0.20 cents. So then they're like, okay, you are in the right place.
Oh.
So for me, day one was, the first impression you make on people.
Yeah.
It's how you're going to run the next many years together. And also, of course, people are able to read energy. It was just to say, I am here, I'm to provide leadership. The government is a very efficient machinery.
Yes.
You realize that they are all the right people at the right places.
Okay, are your colleagues helpful over there?
Very.
Yeah?
Very, very.
Because some people, they're not very happy about other people being promoted and they get very jealous. So that happens everywhere.
I honestly believe if you send positive vibe and energy, it shall come back to you.
Okay, a moment ago you mentioned numbers.
Yeah.
You are the chief financial officer, all of you, of your respective dockets.
Yes.
And the president wants to save like 300 billion shillings. You just mentioned some numbers. Is it tough? Is it going to be tough saving those numbers?
It is tough. It is tough because, for instance, it means that we've cleared off budget for travel, and for some departments, like where we all come from, it depends a lot on that. We've also slashed off budgets for critical development agenda. But to the advantage is that we are also openly having very good conversations with development partners. You realize that there was so much money for donor funding, but absorption was very little. And it had to do with systems in place at the National Treasury. It also had to do with, for instance, this is something that every other time people say, a matter is raised as an audit query, it goes to EACC, it stalls forever. Some of it, that is not really necessary. So I honestly believe that we have the resource within ourselves that we need. It's going to feel some pinch for a while, but it will settle.
Yeah. Roseline, speaking of travel, you travel a little too much, probably for your own good. You're racking up those air miles like crazy.
But to be fair, every single one of my clients is abroad.
Right.
So
because you're diaspora, correct?
Yes, you can't really serve them from here. You can do a lot from here because you're the anchor to here. You're working to bring liaison between, the diaspora and lands, or diaspora and citizen services, immigration, investments, and so on. So that critical function, yes, remains here at HQ. A lot of liaison with the missions, of course, and our ambassadors, who are a part of my staff and our staff at Foreign and Diaspora Affairs. So there's a lot of that, and they do a lot of the heavy lifting within the missions. But yes, I think it's part of the job that you have got to.
It's critical that you travel.
You must, yes, because a lot of the things that we have to do out there, apart from going on visiting day, right, and seeing how diasporians are doing, is also trying to figure out how can we create relationships here that allow us to have more Kenyans working abroad. Who do I need to meet in Singapore for us to be able to secure bringing in more nurses or bringing in more teachers here? Who do we need to see in Australia to make this happen, and so on? So we have to literally be out there supporting the diaspora and pushing this agenda forward.
Yeah. Umi, saving 300 billion, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, it is. First of all, I have an amazing team at the State Department, the technical team who have a vast experience, of course, because they've been there for very many years. Advisors who, advise on where to pick and what to reduce on. So for me, the trainings have been reduced, and that is what we need. We need to train our staff. The staff need to be promoted, but at the same time, they can't be promoted until they achieve a certain threshold in terms of trainings. Travel, local, international, for us, we're not diasporians. We're more of culture, and culture it's about values. It's about being here at home and appreciating different cultures. When I was appointed by His Excellency, I come from Wajir County, and my work does not only stop with Wajir County. This is for the whole country. So I had to, be conversant with different communities, different cultures, different cuisines. I went to Rusinga, where I've never been before, and seeing how the department has to run, but at the same time, you have to respect the order that has been put in place. So at the same time, putting the deliverables and priorities in place. You know, so what I was thinking to do in my State Department is to work with my the CS, Tourism, Wildlife and Heritage, to see on how we can get resources externally, be it partners, be it embassies, be it organizations, international organizations, that can actually make sure we deliver on what we promised the people of Kenya. What we are basing on everything that we do as State Department is fully the manifesto, and making the staff and the people understand what the manifesto first of all says. So that is where I am right now as a PS for Culture and Heritage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned your minister a moment ago.
Yes.
Oh, your CS.
Yes.
You all get along?
Oh, yes, yes. She's amazing. Yeah. She's very supportive. Yeah, we get along.
Yeah. Roseline?
Yeah, I have. My boss has been great, particularly at enabling and letting you thrive. So he pretty much says, what are you doing about this? Can you give me a quick brief? Okay, I like this, I like this. Would you change this? But, you know, I love what you're doing. Go ahead, you know, run with it. Yeah. So in many ways, I have been able to sort of get the agenda from the plan, begin to implement it, and then run with it. I have as I said, Diaspora Affairs was a directorate before, right? So I inherited a small complement of staff of about 30, and our establishment at full force will be something like 120, 130. So I have a small band of disciples that I'm trying to work with to deliver on this you know, on our mandate. And very quickly, I think the thing that you learn, especially if you haven't been in public or civil service before coming in, the first thing you learn is just how much the technocrats within the ministries know and how good they are at their job. And very quickly you start to realize, I might have given government a bad rap when I was out there, right? And just be very fascinated by, Sylvia said earlier that government can be an extremely effective, what's the word used? Efficient machine. Very quickly you start to realize, oh my goodness. So last week, for example, I was in Mombasa and I wanted to meet, we had something with Bunge, you know, in Mombasa, and I said, while we're in Mombasa, can we meet some of the recruitment agencies who have been, you know, recruiting Kenyans to work abroad, particularly in the Middle East? Can we meet them? And very quickly, my team says, oh, we'll talk with, you know, national government administration, and we will organize it. By the time I get to Mombasa, you know, they have 60 or so agents in a room. So it's very, you're like, okay, this is good. This is good. I can work with this. I can do this. Yeah. So that's been a really interesting part of the experience. But the other thing I was going to say about what Umi said is a culture cuts not just across, you know, the various cultures within Kenya, but it is one of the things that we are able to identify with when we're abroad. So one of the things that you notice if you live abroad, for example, is if you're walking in the streets of Stockholm and you hear somebody speaking Kiswahili, you immediately sort of turn your culture. There's something inside you that sort of goes like, that's a taste of home, that's a sound of home, and so on. So culture, for us, even at, you know, the State Department of Diaspora Affairs, is one of those really, really critical sort of linkages that help Kenyans to remain in dialogue with us, to continue being plugged into the national development process, and that's why part of our conversations between, you know, PS Umi and Dia are just how can we begin to tighten that and make cultural diplomacy, which we already have within Foreign Affairs, and, you know, the State Department work even more in sync so that we're able to actually get people both abroad understanding our culture, loving our culture, being interested in Kiswahili, being interested in the things that we do, but also for diasporans to sort of remain connected to the motherland.
Nice, nice. Sylvia, I don't know who, I apologize, who's the CS for wildlife?
We share the same CS.
Oh, both of you?
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah.
And then they split the ministry. Is that what they do?
Previously, wildlife was under environment and natural resources.
Right.
Because we have 20% of the protected species, about 51 parks, 170 conservancies. So conversations around wildlife were usually biodiversity, carbon financing, climate change, things that are generally in environment.
Right.
But since 2018, it was moved to tourism as a product. into tourism, where we feed 70% of the tourism revenues. Because most people who come to this country, of course, the beach sands, the culture, the cuisine, as she says, but of course, the largest population will end up in our national parks. So I think they realized that it became more scientific than a service provider or a product provider.
Right.
So we were now moved in 2018 to Ministry of Tourism. I have a good boss. We have a good working relationship. But the one thing that the president has made clear is that he does not care whether we like each other or not. We have to deliver for Kenyans. And there was not a room for asking, would you want Jeff to be your CS or not? Yeah. So she's qualified for the job. I'm qualified for my job. We have to work together, bring our synergies and energies together, and deliver for Kenyans. Yeah.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned the president. That was my next question.
Yes.
Are you all getting along? I mean, what's he like to work with?
Early mornings.
Yeah.
Deliverables. You go sit on your desk, and it is very clear what you're supposed to do. Since Nanyuki and after Nanyuki for the next 2-3 weeks, it was to say, what do we do in the short term? What do we do in the next financial year? And what do we do in the next 5 years? You realize that we've come on board in between the financial year, 2022-2023. Yeah. So we have to work very quickly round the clock on the budget that there is and see how do we infuse the Kenya Kwanza manifesto priorities and what are we able to capture in the next financial year. So a man who keeps time, everybody knows that. If you're told to be in State House at 8, you'll be there 5 minutes to 8. We work, I honestly really enjoy working with his Council of Economic Advisors generally, because you tap into very solid brains, people who've been in service for years. I work very closely with Mohammed Ali, who is the climate change advisor, and Dr. Ndi, of course. And most of them have been PSs. Monica Juma has been a PS. Adan Mohammed has been a CS. So it is very easy to, if I do not need to necessarily reach the president, in not in a bad way, but there is a good brain around him that is accessible. So there is someone to continuously check, do these priorities still align? Do they not? So it is easy now because we all have our priorities set. For me, for instance, I know human-wildlife conflict is on top of my list. And I have to think through how to pay, compensate to the victims of either death, injury, predation, crops damage, because that is money that goes directly to the people, the hustlers, mashinani. And think around how do I develop an insurance scheme so that it doesn't need to take 10 years for you to be compensated. You realize that the human-wildlife conflict spike is on, there is a serious rise because of the drought situation. So basically working for President William Ruto is you think on your feet. It is early mornings and late nights. It is a lot of consultation. It is breaking silos. There is no saying this is Ministry of Water. There's water for humans. There's water for agriculture and irrigation. There's water for wildlife. So while you sit there and say you're Ministry of Water, you have to supply water to everybody. And that money does not need to come to wildlife. But Ministry of Water needs to find how that water gets into the national parks and game reserves we have. Yeah. And for almost everything else. So we've really been breaking silos. We've been trying to think together as a government. Previously, everybody used to go and try and find a budget for themselves. So that if it is water, it is their budget. So we are no longer following money, we are following functions. If it is health, how do you ensure that there is enough? For instance, if it is trade, how do you ensure that remittances from diaspora, that agriculture is contributing to trade, that value addition, that there's a lot of linkage between livestock now in agriculture and trade because of leather. So it is a holistic government. It is a government about the people. It's not about the offices. If the U.S. ambassador who we hosted today came to our office, she said she had the same discussion with the Ministry of Environment and they agreed for these things. It will be KWS, KFS. So it is a government that is very holistic. It is an approach that is people-centered. And of course, we all know that we will not survive if we do not deliver. It is clear in my mind. But 1 year later, I have to tell the president, I found revenue collection in the national parks at this amount, and so now we are here. That I found a bill of human wildlife conflict compensation at this amount, been able to clear this. How you clear, you innovate with. And I'm using his think tank of advisors to innovate with. So a lot of demands, but also a lot of support to meet those demands.
Roseline, same thing, you agree?
Absolutely. I think working for, President Ruto is a tough job on the one hand, but as Sylvia says, it comes with a lot of support. In my case, I had been in office for a week, and then it was time to travel with the president for the US-Africa Summit.
That's right.
And I was putting up the diaspora, the big diaspora event in Washington, D.C. And the amount of pressure to just perform and perform well at such a global stage, 1 week on the job, making sure that you're meeting the standards that you have checked. It felt a little bit like being a wedding planner. You had to sit and just check everything. One of those evenings, the director for Diaspora Affairs, Ambassador Law and I sat in one of the rooms in the hotel in DC and just sat with the diaspora leaders and went through the program. It took like 45 minutes just ironing things out. There's a level of detail that you have to just meet so that everything goes really, really smoothly. So that was baptism by fire. So after that, it has felt like, okay, I think I know what the standard is, but he's also very quick to support, very quick to send help, also very quick to say, I like that idea, run with that, why don't you work with so-and-so, 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 and he calls them there and says, I want you to support what Roseline is doing. Or he's very quick to say, I don't think you're being ambitious enough with that particular issue. For example, one of the things that we want to do with passports in large sort of swaths of land like the US, Canada, Australia, is to take services mashinani, right? Right now, if you are in Seattle and you want a new passport, you have to all the way to DC to have your biometrics taken and so on. It's extremely expensive. We have, so it's a system that does not work well, right? If you want to get an ID, we issue IDs in exactly 2 stations around the world.
Which are?
In DC and in London.
That's it?
That's it. So now, one of the things he said is, we can't do this. People need to get services quicker, faster. So, we started saying, Excellency, Your Excellency, we will do mobile services. We'll, go around the country and sort of, take biometric equipment. And so he's like, I don't think you're being ambitious enough. Can you find for me a way for Kenyans within their city, within their state, to go somewhere, pay for somebody to take their biometrics, have those biometrics sent to DC or to Nairobi, and then for their passport to come to them in their city? So basically, he sort of leaves that with you. And then you have to figure out, okay, how do I get that done? How do I work with citizen services and immigration? How do I make sure that due data is secure? How do I and he's likely to say within the next 6 months. and he quite simply said, I want you to stay here until you figured it out. Okay, maybe go home a little bit, it's the winter, and then come back. But I want this done. So it's a lot about getting people services quickly, faster, no silos, like Sylvia said, but also, I want you to be innovative. I don't think you're being innovative. Part of the Nanyuki process was basically saying, these are the things that we want to do. We don't have a budget for them. Those of us who have brand spanking new state departments, of course, do not have a budget because we were not part of the last budgeting cycle. So you're basically saying, I have all these amazing things, and you've given me a 6-point mandate that I don't really have a budget, to deliver. And he's like, I want you guys to stop sending letters to Treasury asking for money. There is no more money. I want you to innovate. can you figure out where we are going to squeeze, who you're going to work with, how you're going to form value chains, how are you going to, if culture has a little bit of money and we want them to brand our embassies abroad, how can I be very friendly with Umi so that, she carries me along on that, probably on the promise that when we have rebranded the embassies, she can have little museums at every one of the embassies so that we're meeting culture and, sort of diaspora and foreign affairs mandates and so on. So it's been, every time you get called to State House, you want to have your little brief. You want to have in your mind your dashboards because he's going to ask questions. He's going to ask me questions about how many jobs have you been able to find Kenyans abroad? Where are the jobs? How are you dealing with, distress calls? So you know what your performance indicators are, and you're ready. You work with your little brief in case you are asked. So it keeps things very, very clear.
Yeah.
Yes.
Umi?
Yeah.
You've mentioned the president's name like 4 times. I was counting.
Who was counting? Yeah. So. I could say the president is a timekeeper. He keeps time and he's very disciplined. So he expects the same from us. Personally, I have had to step my game up. I have had to stay in the office more than longer hours than before, get there early because the desk is always full. You'll clear it right now today and tomorrow it's back to square one. So for me, what I can say is the bottom-up economic model. That is the thing that he's very passionate about as a president. And of course, this is a new regime. And these are the promises that we made to the people, he made to the people together with his deputy president. And how do we then pull these people who are the bottom of the pyramid and, and help them economically? For me, what I have under me is the Bomas of Kenya. I have the National Museum of Kenya, and there's an initiative called Ushanga Initiative, which is basically the beads that the Maasais and the pastoralist communities use. So for me, it is more of how do I then support this woman who is there in, Narok, who is in Marsabit, and ensure that the beads that she's making, the necklaces that she's making, rake her some sort of income. And at the same time, assist us at a county level all the way to the national level. What I can say is, we cannot work in a silo. We cannot work as a national government alone. We have to bring in the county governments. There's no way we're going to do anything without working with them. So for me, I've been working with counties like Narok, where we're trying to come up with a state-of-the-art curio mall at the Sekenani Gate, where now our women will have, instead of hawking and running after tourists, they're going to have a place where they're going to sit and lay down their products. At the back of that mall is where we're going to have our production industry, where we're going to have the leather that comes straight from the hides and skins within the county. So it's a beautiful story. So when a tourist comes, they're taken through the whole process. And when someone buys a bag that is beaded, or a belt or a mirror that is beaded with all this beautiful ushanga, they go back home with a story to tell. And a next tourist would love to visit that particular place and, feel this story. The other day we had Madonna around, and she's really marketed us without even us involving her. It's something that she was doing without us approaching her as a government. And we have a beautiful, beautiful country. When you think of tourism, back in the day, you'd think of bush and beach, bush being Masai Mara and the beach being the white beaches, sandy beaches. But we came to understand that these tourists actually have these beautiful hotels. Miami, sandy beaches, Dubai, there's beautiful hotels. But what is it that they come to do here that is different from any other country? And we realized that 35% of these tourists actually are interested in our cultures, in our cuisines, in our dances. So we're trying to capitalize on that as a ministry and, form unit with wildlife, tourism, and myself in culture in such a way that a tourist will look at the package as a whole. He'll go to Mara. What they're used to is usually the Maasais, internationally known. But what we're trying to change as a State Department is that notion of culture is the Maasai shuka and the Maasai jump dance. You know, we want to bring different cultures and communities. We want to take them globally. We have the Pokomo, we have the Luyas, we have the Somalis, we have the Kisi soapstone, for instance. There's so many different, like Lamu, for instance, they have the kofias that they make, and the jamvis, and so many beautiful cultures that I would love to take internationally instead of us being known only for Maasais. That aside, another thing is that culture has always been related to old school, boring stuff. So it is my notion that I really want to change that perspective to, you know, making culture cool again, involving the youth to visit our museum. Because, Jeff, have you ever taken your kid to the museum?
No.
Exactly my point. So what I want to change is that I want to take my kids to the museum. I want them to experience that, understand where the Turkana boy came from. Where was he found? Everybody thinks he was found in Turkana. No, he was found in Marsabit. But you see, there's the whole aspect of the cradle of humankind. We have that. I mean, that is a jackpot, but we don't capitalize on it. So for me, it's an exciting journey to ensure that there's some cohesion between the communities, because our country is known to divide communities when it comes to politics. Politics actually divides us. But the thing and the tool and the vehicle that I can use as a PS, culture and heritage, is culture.
Tell me something, does the Uhuru Gardens Museum, does that fall under you? Or will it, once the military gives it up, or are they still running it, or KDF?
Yeah, that is under defense as we speak.
Okay. Even now?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
It's a great place.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Actually, we have the Hero Square there, where we have this our sport heroes and our Mau Mau heroes at a corner in the Uhuru Gardens.
Wow.
And we plan to actually have, because it's a heritage site, we want to actually work on getting that back, because it is what belongs to heritage.
And culture, All that thought. Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja, he says, congratulations, ladies.
Thank you.
Well done, well done. There's so much more. The reactions are incredible. So many people loving the show. I hope you guys are having a good time.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. That's what we want to hear. I hope you guys are having a good time too, folks. Let's hear your reactions and your responses, your comments and questions to these three amazing ladies. Umi Bashir, she's a PS for Heritage and Culture. Roseline Njogu, she's a PS for Diaspora Affairs, a new docket created recently, and she is taking the ball and running with it. And Sylvia Museya, PS Wildlife. I want to talk about animals dying because of drought. Yeah, let's talk about that when we come back as well, yeah? All right, keep tweeting, folks, at Koinange Jeff, at Citizen TV Kenya, the hashtag JKLIVE. JKLIVE takes a break. We'll be back in a moment.